Hey everyone, it's LS, and this is going to be the RNG versus Team Vitality Speed VOD review. Curious to see actually how this game is going to unfold, because what it looked like to me is that outside of the Echo gameplay that Vitality showed, I was not very impressed. Seemed like as the longer that the game went, the worse that they became. And so I'm really curious to see how they're going to approach trying to take down RNG. So already we have Urgot first pick, which is not something that I would actually... I've been very vocal that I think that Urgot is not as good as Aatrox, and that's mostly just due to the flexible nature that Aatrox offers. So with that being said anyway, Urgot first pick, responded to immediately with Aatrox, and then they end up taking Thresh for Team Vitality, responded to with Gragas and Rakan, but Xayah is already taken away. They hovered Varus, and now Team Vitality is actually hovering Varus. They actually locked the Varus in. So now we'll see what else ends up happening here as we move into the second ban phase. So most likely going to see RNG maybe try to pinch junglers. Maybe they actually try to pinch mid, but I don't think that that would be the case. Very bizarre that Team Vitality has counterpick, and yet they're banning away Akali. I think RNG at this phase just, again, pinches junglers. You ban junglers away from Team Vitality. You could maybe ban away... Well... Oh, they ban... Okay, they ban away LeBlanc. I think the LeBlanc ban is actually fine, given that, again, Vitality does have counterpick. Lucian now being banned away by Vitality, which I don't understand why you would try to ban Uzi. I don't think that you actually have to be too concerned with what ADC is going to play. I think that allocating your bans into either mid laners or... Yeah, I don't know. Alright. And now Kindred ends up being picked up, which is kind of interesting, just because the Gragas is already selected for RNG. So I don't really understand what's going on there. And now it looks like RNG is actually hovering Callisto. It would be very interesting to see her, but instead the swap to Aurelia ends up happening for Xiaohu. And the last pick for RNG, I would like to see Uzi on predominantly a carry, not any sort of supportive ADC. I don't know what they're going to end up last picking him. He can definitely play anything. Okay. Ends up being a Tristana pickup. And so now if you're Vitality and you're going up against the Aurelia, I actually don't know what Vitality's champion pool is. That actually heavily impacts what champions I would recommend in this exact situation. Okay. Looks like a Azir. So, Team Vitality actually has a very, very scary champion-like lineup. The thing is that I don't trust that... Like, when I saw their mid into late game transition play in the previous Worlds game that I VOD reviewed of them, I do not think that they can pilot this type of a team composition. I think that the reason that they won last time was because they had the tools available to them that the stars just aligned and allowed them to win. Even though I think that the draft for Vitality is super, super strong, I don't feel like they can handle it with how I saw their playstyle tending to be in the game. And so when you look at RNG's team composition, they're a little bit all over the place. They have two champions that want to scale up a little bit. They do have a high aggressive jungler that can certainly get priority. But it does look like a team composition that is mostly going to be taken potentially a little bit slow and then have an explosive mid game, because that's what I would expect out of Tristana, Aurelia, and Urgot. And on the flip side, obviously, as well, what Vitality should be looking to do is, interestingly enough, you actually just let, Tristana and Aurelia scale up, and then you just try to coast into the 3-item spike, and you look to try to fight against RNG, maybe around like the 27 to 32 minute mark, is when you would be looking to take team fights, because it's going to be at that point that Aatrox's mobility becomes extremely scary, and then the way that Vitality can actually turtle their red side jungle is very strong. and very difficult for RNG to actually break into. All right. Having a very defensive start out of RNG. Looks like Vitality is maybe looking for some sort of a cheese. And they do get spotted out. And first ward going over to Uzi. Doesn't really matter all that much. They were trying to use the Guardian to get a nice little auto attack onto Attila. Jack Troll using Flay, getting a little trade onto Ming. And so far, Kindred starting out on red buff, Gragas starting out on the Wraiths, now into the red buff. And when you have these lane setups, Azir is a self-sustaining mid laner. It does look like there are pings coming out by Kindred to go into the blue side jungle. Kindred does not RNG well, so definitely not a Hearthstone player here. On the Scuttle Crab, a little bit unfortunate. That actually really sucks because that's a pretty big win anytime that Kindred actually gets the RNG on the Crab. And so now Kindred is going to advance into the blue side jungle. We're going to see that Gragas is not there. This should actually alert Vitality. But it does look like it doesn't really matter. Jack Troll is most likely going to be going down. Uzi gets a kill. This is probably the worst case scenario that Vitality can have going for them, because if Tristana actually accelerates and gets out of laning phase early, this is really problematic for Aatrox, because it means that his wake up is going to be stunted, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on Azir, because Vitality, even though they have a lot of mobility in the later stages of the game, if Tristana, which is the champion that should not be getting opened up and out onto the map, starts doing it that early, Urgot is just going to have tempo control and advantage over Aatrox. Aatrox will fall behind of Urgot temporarily, and then Azir will be very hard-pressed to actually maintain control over mid lane. And then because an Ocean Drake is the first dragon, RNG is actually even incentivized to just get the turret, get the hell out, get up to top lane, get the Rift Herald, and then Rift Herald is so fucking big against that Azir, because if you can take down and raise Azir's first mid-tier 1 turret against Vitality's team comp that ideally wants to scale into the, 2, 3, 4 items to where they start taking over against RNG, becomes really bad for them. Aatrox. Gragas not really doing anything right now. And Kiki's, he does have quite a bit of CS. And he's pathing back into his left-hand side jungle. And we have the pings going down. And right now, I mean, Jiizuke, is that how you say his ID? Azir has a notable CS lead in mid. Kindred is in close proximity to the next spawning Scuttle Crab. And so it just looks like right now that Kindred's just looking for any sort of intel on Karsa. And instead actually able to come up to top lane, get some damage onto Let Me. Quite actually a big chunk. Cabochard's going to be able to crash this wave into the turret. And this is going to cause Let Me's wave to bounce back into him. And that should actually have perfect synergy with the red buff that's going to come up for Kindred. So Kindred's actually invading Karsa's jungle. Going to try to take away the Gromp. It's very, very difficult to actually gank the Azir. I don't know why they're actually trying. And this is actually allowing Kiki's to get some Jiizuke. Jiizuke? No. Azir. That's how he shall be referred to. And Xiaohu, don't really know what he's doing. Tries to deal as much damage as he possibly can to Kindred. Karsa having a little bit of a sloppy rooting and pathing, but I mean, Xiaohu probably just was not expecting the engage to come out from Vitality, so they're already off to a little bit of a lead, at least in mid, and that's really important because Azir is the best champion that they have to stall the game, and that's exactly what they need to be doing. Was Let Me just trying to ult onto Kindred? I guess that's what that was. Kindred's in a very, very good spot right now. Actually recalls into double longsword. I don't know if I like that as much as just getting into the tier 2 boots immediately, because all that you need to do is actually maintain pressure because your mid laner's winning as hard as he is, and then you just need to bounce between mid and bottom lane and make sure that Uzi doesn't get out of control, because top lane's already semi-stable. So I don't like the fact that he went double longsword with the boots. I actually think that's a pretty poor decision. I think just maintaining mobility, having control wards, controlling Gragas, rushing to his right-hand side jungle, contesting him over his red while you know that your Azir is going to have priority in mid lane. And then you can play against the enemy bottom lane's recall timing, and you can even have Jack Troll invade with you. I think that would be infinitely better than what Vitality's doing right here. I mean, they get the blue buff. It looks like they're going to have Cabo Shard, shove Let Me off the turret, and deny him quite a bit of gold and XP. Is this actually times 2? It feels very slow. It feels very slow. The game's actually moving too slow. I can keep up with everything with, like, no difficulty. I don't know. 1.5. Okay. All right, and so now Karsa, let's rewind really quick. So Vitality coming into mid lane, Karsa is there, and it looks like Kindred's just going to go down immediately. Don't actually know why the exhaust was cast. There was absolutely no universe in which Kindred was going to live there. We see pro players do this quite a lot. Solo queue as well. And sometimes they'll use stopwatches or summoner spells that absolutely have no business being used. And so all of a sudden, the advantages that they had in mid lane are completely thrown away due to reckless over-aggression that had nothing to do with anything that Vitality should have been wanting to have happen. So I really don't like how Kindred has pathed and rooted like the last minute or so. Karsa was there, and then Xiaohu able to just go right back over the wall, and there wasn't really much that Azir could do. Uzi is ahead in the CS department. He's coming off of a recall. He finally has that Storm Razor. This is where things can actually get a little bit scary. You can see that Karsa is also pathing over onto the right-hand side of the map. Top lane continues to be semi-stable, although Cabo Shard does have an advantage over Let Me, so that should be noted. And it looks like RNG is just... Oh, no. Oh, man. I really, really don't like the jungle pathing out of Vitality this game. I mean, I really liked it like the first, 6 minutes or so, and then everything after that I just started to hate it, because it started to show me that yet again Vitality wanted to do what they wanted to do rather than what the enemy team, rather than play against what the enemy team needed. That's basically going to be my narrative for all of fucking Worlds, because I'm just so fed up of teams not understanding that what they want to do is less important than what the enemy team needs to happen. So I feel like Kindred and friends definitely could have put more of a stranglehold on the game, and they could have achieved a lot more in mid lane and attacking the enemy jungler, as well as restricting some of the advantages that Uzi had going into the game, or going further into the game and transitioning into mid lane. And now they see Uzi rotating, and this is that really, really rough spot where RNG even has the Ocean Drake, but even if there was a dragon available, if RNG made this rotation, they get the Herald. It's such a painful spot to be in for Vitality, because you can see that they're recalling prematurely, they're giving up a lot of XP in CS. Bottom lane tier 1 turret is so healthy for RNG. They're just so far behind in tempo, and now the Herald is actually on Karsa. I don't know if they're going to summon the Herald up in top lane. I can't tell if that's actually what they're wanting to do. I hope that it's not what they do. I think that the Herald is much better spent in mid lane, raising that mid tier 1 Azir turret. And so now if you're Vitality, you have to accept the thing that we talked about earlier on, where you just have to be defensive, you have to turtle, and it looks like Let Me was just trying to kill as much as he could with the minions. He ends up going down. It's a nice pickup. They're going to be able to get bottom tier 1 turret. And now this means that the Herald is going to go down in mid, though. I don't like the fact that Kindred actually stayed down in bottom, because this potentially does mean that 2 turrets can go down in mid lane. You can see that Varus is tied up in top lane. Azir trying his best to get out of there. I don't think that RNG is actually going to push on from here, and this is okay. This is the defensive terrain, basically, that Vitality has to turtle. So hold on, before it cuts to some replay that I don't care about, This is what Vitality needs to control right now. This is really it. They need to stay inside of all of this blue, turtle endlessly until 2 to 3 items. Fortunately for them, another Drake's coming up that is basically useless. So even after this Drake comes up, it's going to take RNG some investment into killing it. RNG does not yet have the items to start threatening turret dives onto the tier 2 turrets. They need to accept the fact that they're not going to get any turrets other than the bottom tier 1, and that's okay because their team composition functions better with less gold. And right now, Uzi and Xiaohu are going to be extremely oppressive at 1 and 2 items, and that's okay because Vitality has enough wave clear to handle any type of barrage that RNG is going to throw at them. So they bounce everything in between this blue that I'm drawing on the mini-map right now. They scale up into 3 items, and then eventually they manipulate the side lanes with slow pushes and advance out onto the map as a unit of 5 members, and you play Protect the Azir, Protect the Varus, and then slowly but surely you fight back against RNG that way. Whether or not they're going to acknowledge that and do that is an entirely different story because it's something that I tend not to see from NA or EU teams, and especially not even out of some of the lower end Korean teams. All right, now RNG just clearing their objective, blue. Vitality is rushing into mid lane to get the farm. This is something, all right, I don't know why Vitality is advancing forward. I did not know why 4 members are crossing the map. I don't know why they're clearing out vision on the left-hand side. I mean, yes, they get some gold by clearing out the ward, but it's ultimately useless. They need to just be waiting for the waves to come in. You see this? You see this, right? See this? Okay. Let me tell you what this means. This means that this is coming into here. Now, what does Vitality see? Vitality sees minions. Vitality is panicked because what do they want? They want items. They want gold. What they don't realize is that RNG needs them to come out on the map. RNG needs Vitality to advance past the halfway point of the map. They need them to come out of this shell, okay? RNG needs this. They need Vitality to come out of this blue on the minimap, all right? This is what RNG fucking needs. Now, Vitality confuses this because Vitality wants gold, right? They want items, etc. They don't fucking realize that all of this is irrelevant as long as they get to 3 and 4 items. So this minion wave with the reinforcing minions is going to come into Vitality. And if they end up doing that, it means that Xiaohu has to invest more resources into warding and having control wards in order to safely advance up past the golems in order to try to break the freeze or attempt to. And because his jungler isn't in close proximity, Xiaohu can't reliably actually break that freeze without potentially risking his own life depending on the vision control of Vitality inside of their own red side jungle. Cabochard should not be endlessly pushing the lanes back into the fucking bottom like a goddamn thoughtless person because it's not actually achieving anything. It's going to be the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over. So Attila and Jack Troll are going to shove this wave because they can't spell League of Legends instead of letting the wave come all the way in past the golems and then perma-locking it there with Varus, having Thresh and Kindred control vision inside of the red side jungle, and then having Azir perma-camp in front of his tier 2 mid turret, and again, control vision, defensive control wards, defensive green wards, and then make it so that RNG, with all of their advantages and all of their base scaling edges that they have over your team composition currently, cannot be utilized by them. And then because an Ocean Drake is coming up, you can laugh in their face as they're forced to try to attempt to take it because there's not another neutral objective on the map because Herald has already been taken. This should not be allowed to happen because just the members are too far away in proximity, and Vitality is prioritizing useless objectives that do not actually coincide with what they need to have occur in order for them to win the game. That's not me clicking, that's the Korean Challenger player behind me. And you see that Vitality is advancing forward in the map, right? You see top lane, it's coming back in. Why are they in a position where RNG can potentially fight them? What are they, like, okay, they actually get Uzi. This is so insane. I don't care that they get Uzi. I don't care that this fight unfolds. This took RNG making mechanical errors, right? In order for this to be a successful fight. These are like, all right, I don't know how to like explain this. So here's how result-based analysis works. People will see this and be like, oh, okay, what Vitality's doing is acceptable. No, it's not. It's not acceptable at all. Because if RNG doesn't make the mechanical errors and Xiaohu doesn't do what he does and then Uzi doesn't get hit by the hook and whatnot, this whole fight ends up being for naught. And then what ends up happening is they lose out on tempo control in the two side lanes. They lose out on the clear times, on their wraiths and whatnot. And if they just actually dance and posture with RNG at 1300 range, which is Vision, you'll notice that RNG isn't eating their camps, and they're also not prioritizing immediately eating the Ocean Drake or anything. So RNG is actually losing out. They're having a temporary decrease in gold gain per minute, which goes directly against what RNG wants to have happen. So Vitality is playing into what RNG wants. Vitality ends up winning in this isolated incident, but if you play the incident out 100 different times, there's always going to be different outcomes. Instead, you could play the map in a way that is guaranteed to have one specific outcome, or give you an outcome that is infinitely more favorable than the outcome that we're seeing, or not the outcome that we're seeing here, but the percentage chance for what happens here to happen. It was a good dodge by the Azir. Uzi ends up getting hit there. That's actually very uncharacteristic. Very surprised he didn't flash. Attila, what? 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 How did that happen? What? RNG now rotating up into top lane that have quite a sizable minion wave, but I mean, this is the stuff that Vitality should be handshaking. So, Twitch chat, I want you to fucking pause right now. Alright, let's go back to this. Alright? Let's go back to this right here. Okay? Let's go back to this. If Vitality just turtles this with defensive vision control, you give RNG map hacks. How does RNG break it? It's a rhetorical question. They can't. They can't actually break it. Now, the thing is that they can try to go for a Baron, right? The thing is that Vitality should acknowledge that this is the only possible thing that can happen. They should already have swapped to double blue trinket in the event that this would already be happening, right? And then our Vitality moves as a unit, protecting Azir and Varus as they advance towards the Baron. RNG is then forced to back off the Baron. The side lanes yet again get bad because the cumulative level score of RNG is higher than Vitality, causing the minions to endlessly push into Vitality, unless RNG properly manipulated a minion wave, in which they're showing us that they're not doing throughout this game. Instead, we're getting low-level macro play from both teams, where RNG is basically doing something that I see TSM do very often, where they prey upon their opponents making consistent mistakes in order to capitalize and then punish them mechanically. Vitality doing the same exact thing that they just did a minute ago. Look at this. Look. Side lanes are good. RNG's not getting anything. Vitality starts winning out in about, 6 to 10 minutes. Vitality's team composition is basically it's a siege tank. It's just a tank that moves forward, protects Varus, protects Azir. It is so fucking hard for Karsa and Xiaohu to do anything to Azir and Varus. And then it comes all about Uzi. And what the fuck's happening? Like, why? Just fucking why, man? Jesus. It's so sad to watch. You would never make these decisions if your life depended on it. You would It's so interesting that being overly cautious would actually make these teams so much better than they are. And now that probably means that RNG is going to get the Baron, and that's most likely going to be the end of the game, because this is the only thing that Vitality needed to prevent. Because RNG needed Baron in order to crack these turrets. Because Azir was just getting too strong. Azir was already at 2 items. All they had to do was wait. Inaction was action, and they don't understand that. Alright. Now it looks like let me doing a little bit of a one. Oh, what on me, dude. Oh my god. Oh, Jesus Christ, the kidnapper. Oh my god. We just got a fucking small preview of Taken 4. Jesus. Alright. Inhibitors are down. This is basically the end of the game. I mean, I can talk about what RNG could do to be more refined. I'll tell you one thing, that taking Ocean Drake is a mistake, though, but this is something that I'm going to go over in a LS Logic video, because it's a very long, convoluted topic that has to do with poker and probabilities and other stuff like that. But it should be talked about and it should be done, because we're talking about a competitive strategy game, in a way. It's good to see that they are ignoring Ocean Drake, even if it's not intentional. It's still beneficial. They should ignore Ocean Drake until 2850, and then take it to prevent Elder from spawning. Because that's what Vitality needs to win the game. RNG does not need Elder Dragon to win the game. They should already acknowledge that they are competent enough to win with the advantages that they do have. It's just a win more type thing. Okay, so triple inhibitor, I like that they are backing off and resetting. I really, really, really like to see this. They should probably clear the ocean now. Well, they don't have to clear it right away. I guess they can path to it right now and then clear it. I love that timer. I love that timer on the right. The reason that you kill the dragon at exactly 2850 is because if you can kill it at like 2859, it causes another dragon to spawn. It causes another elemental dragon to spawn. If you kill it at 29 minutes, Elder will spawn. It's not forbidden for professional players to FF, although it is frowned upon and you can get fined. I don't know in what cases or circumstances the fine would be enforced, but it doesn't really matter. Looks like they were trying to get Mr. Uzi. and Mr. Uzi decided that he did not want to go down. And so that is actually it. Vitality played about as I expected. Azir, or I don't know how to say his ID, continued to be the only player on the team that was impressing me. I think that the early game jungle pathing was really good up until was like the 8-minute mark or something, or 7-minute mark, in which case I think that Kiki's, or I don't know how to say his ID, started really dropping the ball. And I think that they did not utilize the Azir advantages as well as they could have. I think that they played very reckless. They continued to show a misunderstanding of mid into late game transitions. They showed an extremely flawed understanding of League of Legends when they showed their incompetence with handling side lanes and minion waves. And then they clearly also showed that they care more about playing to what they want to do rather than playing against what the enemy team needs them to do. And so that's pretty much it for RNG versus Vitality.